There's a certain kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from failure. It comes from trying so hard to become someone better and still feeling like nothing is changing. You wake up determined, you make the plan, you tell yourself this week will be different. And then the day ends with something small. A tiny gain, a tiny improvement, a trade you managed better than the last time, a moment where you didn't panic, a decision that looked almost invisible from the outside. And somehow, instead of feeling proud, it feels disappointing. Because part of you thought transformation would feel bigger than this. Most people never notice how emotionally difficult consistency actually is. They celebrate dramatic breakthroughs, big wins, huge months, the before and after story. But almost nobody talks about the strange psychological weight of small progress, especially when you're trying to rebuild trust with yourself. Society tends to treat discipline like a personality trait. Like some people are simply born focused, emotionally stable, inconsistent, while others are lazy, distracted, or weak. But that's rarely what's happening underneath. A lot of people who struggle with consistency are not lacking effort. They're carrying nervous systems that became trained to expect urgency, intensity, fear, or emotional survival, and quiet progress feels unfamiliar to them. Sometimes even unsafe. That's why small green days matter more to people than they think. Not because they're exciting, but because they represent something deeper than profit, achievement, or visible success. They represent regulation. There's more going on here than most people realize. Psychologists have studied something called reward prediction for years. The brain is constantly trying to anticipate emotional outcomes. When the brain gets used to high emotional volatility, massive wins, crushing losses, chaos, unpredictability, it starts associating intensity with meaning, which means calm progress can feel emotionally empty at first, even when it's healthy, even when it's sustainable. Neuroscience researchers have also found that the brain builds trust through repetition, not declarations. The nervous system doesn't fully believe what you say about yourself. It believes patterns, tiny repeated actions, tiny repeated outcomes, tiny repeated moments of emotional control. That's why one calm, disciplined day often matters more psychologically than one explosive success followed by emotional collapse. But people rarely talk about this because steady growth doesn't look impressive from the outside. It looks boring. And humans are deeply conditioned to chase emotional stimulation, especially people who spent years surviving emotionally unpredictable environments. If someone grew up around instability, criticism, emotional inconsistency, financial stress, or constant pressure, the nervous system often adapts by becoming hyper-focused on immediate outcomes. The brain learns to monitor danger constantly. Am I winning? Am I falling behind? Am I safe yet? Did I finally prove myself? Over time, this creates a painful relationship with progress because slow growth feels too quiet. There's no emotional rush to confirm that you matter. No dramatic moment that suddenly erases insecurity. No instant transformation that makes the past disappear. Just another small green day. And strangely, that can feel harder to tolerate than the chaos. A lot of people don't realize they've become emotionally attached to the intensity, not because they enjoy suffering, but because intensity feels familiar. The adrenaline, the emotional swings, the pressure, the constant need to recover. It creates the illusion of movement. Meanwhile, sustainable growth often feels almost invisible while it's happening. And that invisibility can make people abandon the very thing that's finally helping them heal. Because healing rarely feels cinematic. Most of the time, it feels repetitive, quiet, unremarkable, sometimes even disappointing. Until one day you look back and realize your reactions changed before your results did. You started pausing instead of spiraling, recovering faster, respecting your limits, taking fewer emotionally driven risks, needing less external validation to feel okay. And none of those changes usually happen all at once. They compound. The same way damage compounds. The same way fear compounds. The same way emotional habits compound. People often think confidence comes from winning, but a deeper kind of confidence comes from evidence. Evidence that you can stay steady. Evidence that you can survive discomfort without self-destructing. Evidence that you can trust yourself even on ordinary days. And ordinary days are where most real transformations happen, not in the dramatic moments people post online. There's also something deeply misunderstood about emotional control. A lot of people imagine emotional control means becoming numb, detached, robotic, or unaffected. But that's not really what healthy regulation looks like. Healthy regulation is often just creating enough internal safety that emotions no longer need to be heard by screaming. It's being able to experience disappointment without collapsing, excitement without impulsiveness, ambition without desperation. And that balance can feel unfamiliar to people whose identity became tied to extremes, because extremes feel certain. Calm feels uncertain at first. There's a paradox hidden inside sustainable growth that almost no one talks about. The healthier you become emotionally, the less dramatic your progress often feels. Not because less is happening, but because your nervous system is no longer turning every moment into survival. You stop needing every day to prove something enormous. And while that sounds peaceful, it can also feel strangely empty during the transition, especially if achievement once served as emotional protection, especially if success became connected to worth. That's why some people sabotage stability the moment they finally start experiencing it. Not consciously, but because chaos feels emotionally recognizable. An unfamiliar peace can temporarily feel uncomfortable. None of this means someone is broken. It means the mind adapted. It learned patterns. It created protections. It tried to survive the environments and emotional experiences it was given. And honestly, there's something deeply human about that. God designed the mind to adapt. The problem is that survival patterns don't always know when survival is over. So sometimes growth begins with teaching the nervous system that small progress is still progress, that calm is still movement, that consistency still counts, that a quiet green day still matters even if nobody applauds it. Because over time, those days become identity, not the loud identity built on performance, the quieter one built on trust. And trust grows slowly. The same way roots grow, mostly underground, mostly unseen, long before anything visible appears above the surface. Maybe that's why sustainable growth can feel so emotionally confusing at first. You expect fireworks, but what arrives is steadiness. You expect certainty, but what develops instead is resilience. You expect to suddenly become a different person, but often healing looks more like slowly becoming safe enough to be yourself without fear, running everything underneath. And there's value in that kind of growth. Even when it feels small, even when it feels late, even when nobody else notices it yet, especially when nobody else notices it yet. Because sometimes the most important changes in a person's life begin so quietly, they almost mistake them for nothing. And if this feeling resonated with you, there's probably another layer underneath it too. The part that still believes progress only matters when it's visible. And that part has a story behind it. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from failure.